This beauty has just lost her husband. With a huge debt, she sees that the man likes him. She decided to make good use of her body and change things for good. Her name is Annie, originally a rich person, but late one night, she suddenly received the news that her husband had been in a car accident. When Annie and her lawyer arrived in a hurry, all they saw was the crashed car. The moment she saw her husband's body in the hospital morgue, she cried. With the funeral, Annie became a widow, born in a remote town. Annie's father urged her to take the children back home with him, but Annie refused. She had lived in the city for many years and did not want to give up. Her father didn't insist anymore. After all, he wasn't rich either. When she left, Annie even gave him a sum of money. However, her next life was not what she expected. Not only did her husband not have any inheritance, but he also had a lot of debts. She thought the insurance money from his accidental death would pay off some of it, but her lawyer told her that her husband had already surrendered all his insurance policies due to lack of funds, so she would not receive any compensation. Not only that, the house and car were already mortgaged to the bank. Once the loan is not repaid, the bank will take it away. Annie, who was well fed and clothed, fell from heaven to hell overnight. Luckily, the nanny decided to stay and take care of her and her young children for free. The next day, Annie walked into the luxury store she often visited, hoping to work here as a shop assistant. The manager thought it was a case of a rich person being bored with life and readily agreed to her request. Annie quickly blended in. A male customer recognized her and tried to flirt with her under the pretext of greeting her. After being slapped by Annie, he ran away in panic. By now the manager knew that Annie was broke. She fired her for disrespecting the customer. Without a source of income, Annie sells her private yacht in the harbor. The lawyer buys it for far less than the market price. Nevertheless, Annie was grateful. After all, with this money, the mother and daughter would be able to support themselves. Next, and sold the family's collection and fine furniture. The villa became empty and desolate. She told her girlfriend that she also wanted to sell the limited edition luxury items. With the help of her girlfriends, an auction was held. All the people there were famous ladies and noble women. Global limited edition items are their highest pursuit. One of them was a rich girl who saw this dress on Annie's body, and she brought it into the dressing room. As everyone watched, the rich girl came out in her dress and Annie was left in her underwear. Although she got some money in exchange for the luxury goods at the auction, but this is just a drop in the bucket for hundreds of millions of dollars of debt. She is constantly bouncing around from man to man, from the business elite to the political elite. After learning that she only had 3 months left to pay back the money, Annie could only hope to find a rich man. After being introduced by her girlfriends, Annie starts dating again and again. The first blind date is a big talk about how much he misses Annie. It turns out that the two had known each other for a long time. The man was also a family man, because his wife is crucial to his political career. So all the man can offer Annie is the status of his mistress and $100,000 a month to live on. Annie won't agree. After all, she wanted much more than that. The second date is a billionaire with hundreds of billions of dollars, and the diamond necklace as a gift is worth a lot of money. If only she could marry him, the bill would be paid off. However, the rich man's false teeth hidden behind the photo frame disgust Annie. She drops the diamond necklace and runs away. Two girlfriends are amused by her blind date. Annie notices a fur coat in her best friend's closet that looks familiar. It turned out to be the same one she had secretly taken home on the day of the auction. No wonder Annie never received the money for this dress. Annie called her best friend's husband and took him under her wing. Then, she asked the man to return the dress, or she would tell her best friend about the two of them. The man then realized that he had been tricked. Although he hurriedly cursed and put on the clothes, but still the next day obediently bought a new one to send over. Annie deliberately wore it on herself in front of her girlfriend's coins. Then she rushed to the store and sold it. Not only did she have money to pay for childcare, but she also bought a used car on the side. The man finally confessed everything to his girlfriend. The bestie raged at Annie for her disgraceful tactics. Her best friend told her that her unlucky husband had in fact taken an older woman, Jennifer, whom Annie also knew. They had just met the day of the birth. Everyone knew about her husband's affair, but Annie was in the dark. In the empty house, Annie and her sleeping daughter hugged each other tightly. Once she thought she was the happiest woman, but she didn't know she had been living a lie. Early the next morning, Annie rushed to Jennifer's house. Jennifer admitted that she had indeed been having an affair with her husband, and that she had forced him to choose between herself and Annie. In the end, he chose his family, but died on the way back. When she heard the truth, she couldn't accept her husband's betrayal. She came home and smashed all the pictures with her husband, and the wedding ring was thrown down the toilet and flushed away. Annie knows very well that every man wants to have himself but no one is willing to spend the rest of his life with him. In this case, she decided to follow the example of the heroine of a novel, to draw a lucky winner to spend 5 years with herself, the cost of $100 million. During this period, she must accept unconditionally any request made by the other party. Each of the 20 candidates in the lottery must first pay $10 million as a deposit. Even if they are not selected, the money is not refundable. Despite the high price, many wealthy people flocked to the reception. Some offered to inspect the goods first, and Anne agreed. Saunas, hotels, whatever they wanted to see, she would do it all. One farm also asked her out under the guise of an inspection. When she found out that it was Annie's idea, the owner suddenly started cursing. She had sold her soul in such a way. He drove her away with a vengeance. Since another best friend's husband was in the bidding, she scolds Annie, and the two fall out completely. After losing her friend, Annie begins to doubt herself. She tries to talk to her lawyer, but he takes the opportunity to confess his love for her. The lawyer has been taking good care of Annie all these days, but just when Annie almost believed it, a woman's voice came from upstairs. There is no doubt that the man in front of her is also a scum. Annie gets up and leaves. Soon after, Annie met a man, David, who had her heart set on him. She accidentally hit him with her car and David passed out, but he didn't take it personally. His witty and humorous conversation made Annie fall in love with him. Despite being younger than her, he was always there for her when she needed help. Only in the presence of David, Annie can forget the unhappiness for a while. However, just when the 20 people were gathered, the police suddenly sealed the lawyer's office because they received an anonymous tip about this ridiculous raffle. Once this happened, the participants were completely panicked. These people were all people of high standing. Once this was made public, it would cause an uproar. At this point, they could only pin their hopes on Annie, who had been summoned. As long as she doesn't admit it, she might be able to escape. When questioned by the police, Annie said that the money was indeed for herself, but in the name of charity. When her husband died, it was common knowledge that she was heavily in debt. As friends of her husband, they learned of Annie's plight and reached out to help her, hoping that they could continue to live a normal life as a mother and daughter. The reason why they all sent money anonymously was because they were afraid of hurting Annie's self-esteem. The police were speechless. After all, there was no substantial evidence other than the money orders. Thus, a public controversy was successfully resolved by the intelligent Annie. The rich and famous were pleased with her words. They didn't dare to ask for the $10 million deposit back. Soon after, Annie and David got married. These people were also present. They just don't know who the informer is.